Hey there guys, welcome to my compound life. I am Jonathan. This is a channel where we build assets, we build habits, and of course we build freedom, and that will be financial freedom, time freedom for you, me, and anyone else that watches my videos. So guys, remember that. Remember to hit the like, hit subscribe. I'm a very new content creator, so whatever like and subscribe can really help me. So do me that favor, guys. Do so. Thank you. So quick disclaimer. This is not financial or investment advice. I'm not a licensed advisor. Everything here is for education and entertainment only, guys. So welcome to another episode of Bitcoin Daily. As of time of recording, it's the 11th of February 2026. Good morning from the UK, West Midlands. So good to see you all. Okay, so let's start with price action this morning. 66.9. Damn. So right now, Bitcoin is trading around 66,500 to about 67,000. In the past 24 hours, it dropped about 3%, starting from around 69,000, hitting a high near of 69,200 and a low around 66,800. We are far away from the previous all-time high of 126,000 back in October, early October, and about 47% away from the previous all-time high. So Bitcoin is moving in a tight range below 70,000. Okay, tight range of 70,000 with no clear breakout yet. So this means the price is stuck between support level, right? So and between support level where buyers step in and resistance where seller push back. So I think also good to highlight, price is slowly trending lower with lower highs, showing sellers are in control. And I mean, it's good to highlight the fact that if we need to get to the bottom, we might as well just do it soon, right? Rather than, giving me some hope, pump a little bit and then more downwards. But having said that, this is the kind of period that we should all anticipate, right? Just a quick reminder. Oh, my chart's not working. Internet is very slow to look at, by the way. So I just hope we can move more downwards quicker, right? Look at this. So the white line indicates this current Bitcoin cycle from the low to the low, hopefully, right? So every time, when it reaches its peak, all-time high, so in our case that would be sometime last year in October at 126,000, it will take approximately 12 months for us to get to the Bitcoin bottom. Okay, so of course this time round the drop was pretty steep. Look at how steep this is. Okay, so that's why a lot of people are calling it the bottom. But certainly, we need to have the anticipation if the 4-year cycle does play out. It will take a few more months for us to get to the bottom. Okay, so and looking back at our chart, for the time being at around 72,000, well, 71,000, it's the current resistance. And of course, we have a pretty strong support at around 60,000. Okay, so it does seem we are kind of range bound for now. Hopefully, we won't get to that 60,000. We'll just range bound here a little bit. So we look at 4 hours chart. We're just essentially range bound around this this area, right? Hopefully it won't get to the 60K, right? However, may I remind you, a couple of days ago, we did almost hit the 200 weeks moving average, right? So if we zoom out, guys, if we zoom out, let's go to weekly chart. We zoom out, okay? The last time it took about 31 weeks to get to the 200 weeks moving average. So this time around, we obviously dipped so much that we almost touches the 200 weeks moving average, okay? So last time, the last cycle, by the time we hit the 200 weeks moving average, it took some time before we actually gotten out and go above the 200 weeks moving average. So that was when the bullish momentum starts to come back, right? So for the time being, we are still in a pretty bearish situation. I think we're just gonna have to respect the trends for now, okay? So quick look at the ETF. What's ETF are doing? What are they doing? ETF. Bitcoin ETF. Yesterday it was all inflow, which is good. Biggest inflow coming from ARK Invest. I think that was also mentioned on a lot of social media, saying that they're buying heaps of Bitcoin. Followed by Fidelity and followed by BlackRock. So good. I think it does seem gradual. Maybe retail from the TradFi perspective does think that Bitcoin already bottomed. So that's why they're coming back. Okay. And quick look into Ethereum ETF. The ETH ETF yesterday also recorded inflow. Very, very tiny portion of inflow of $13.8 million, okay? Largely coming from Grayscale and a little bit from Fidelity, okay? And what about Solana ETF? Solana ETF yesterday also recorded another inflow of $8.4 million, largely coming from Bitwise. So are we seeing ETFs coming back to buy, right? So I think it's rather positive, but it's only 2 days worth of data, so we'll see. We'll give it a week and see, how ETFs are, are treating this, treating this dip. Okay, so perhaps I'm just thinking out loud. Maybe ETFs. Retail does think that the dip is over, bottom is over, and now is like the time to come back to buy. So that could be a very, very key indicator to see whether we will have a recovery or not. Okay, but today I want to spend some time to explain or to look into at least my explanation of why I don't think, 60,000 this year, this huge, massive dip here was the bottom. Okay, so I want to do something different today to look into some other charts. Okay, so instead of reacting to daily price move, let's take a step back. Let's look into two of the most respected long-term Bitcoin models. That's the Bitcoin Power Law model, as well as the MVRV Z-Score. I like to call it MVRV Z-Score, but I think American viewers, we've got a lot of them here, so I'm just gonna call it MVRV Z-Score. Okay, so we're going to answer one important questions, right? Are we near a cycle bottom? or are we in the mid cycle, or something entirely, different? Okay, so let's break it down, guys. Let's break it down. Let me bring over my chart. Okay, let's start with the structure power law. Okay, that's the structure. So Bitcoin power law is not hype. It's a long-term regression model that shows how Bitcoin has trended across, the past 15 years. Okay. And on the chart, what you see the orange line. The orange line equals the long-term fair value trend for Bitcoin. And of course, you see the blue line. Yeah, the blue line, that's the historical price, the floor for Bitcoin. And of course, the red line, that's the historical ceiling for Bitcoin. And of course, black line, it's the actual price action itself for Bitcoin, right? So you see, this is pretty up to date of data. Okay, so now here's what matters every cycle, right? Because from every cycle, you kind of see a blow off tops approach, or it kind of overshoots the red band, and deep bear market bottoms that's approaching the blue bands. Okay, so where are we right now? Okay, so we are not near the red, of course, as you can see, even from the recent recent top for Bitcoin. We are nowhere near the red line. So that's why a lot of people are saying that the 4-year cycle is dead and there's no blow off top, simply because they also have that certain belief that the power law has been broken. This is why they still believe that there's still room for Bitcoin to hit the top, right? So we're kind of in the middle half of the whole channel. That means structurally we are not in euphoria. We are not in capitulation. At least I don't think we are in the capitulation. Look how far we are away from the blue line, right? And we are kind of in a transitional phase. Transition to what? I don't know. Transition, would that be a transition to the bottom or to the top? We can only find out in a few months' time, right? So now let's take a quick look at the MVRV Z-Score, right? So MVRV Z-Score, it kind of let's overlay some psychology into this Bitcoin cycle, right? So the MVRV Z-Score measure how far market value deviates from realized values. So effectively the network cost basis. So historically, when the orange line, the Z-Score, MVRV Z-Score hits 7 or 9, so that's in this red zone, it's cycle tops form. Okay, as you can see from the price action, cycle top from the last cycle. Well, that's the last cycle, 69. So this was the last cycle, and this was from before, right? So obviously this time around, the MVRV score never quite got them up to that desired level, right? Because all of the tops, MVRV score kind of indicates the top. So when MVRV drops to near zero, okay, let's put myself up here. Okay, when MVRV score drops to near zero, that's the macro bottom form. Okay, so specifically look at 2013, right? 2013 Bitcoin bull run, parabolic move. Bitcoin top, MVRV Z-Score kind of goes to the roof. The same for 2017. Eventually Bitcoin goes all the way up. MVRV Z-Score all the way up to, and even for 2021, MVRV score goes up, Bitcoin price goes up. Okay, so this time around it's just really, really strange, right? So each blow off top, Z-Score, is kind of in the red zone. And each brutal bear market Z-Score, right? You can look at all the bear market Z-Score are at, below that green zone. Okay. So looking at this MVRV Z-Score, right? Where are we now, right? We are kind of in the mid-range. It's what I would expect. So we're definitely not overheated. I mean, how overheated can we be, right? But at the same time, we're not deeply undervalued. Okay, so again, both chart, we are kind of in the middle structure. Okay, so this is when the two models kind of agree with each other. This is where it gets interesting, because power law, this chart, power law says we're in the mid channel, and of course MVRV also says we are in the mid-cycle heat. Okay, so when two completely different models, one price structure based, one on-chain valuation based, both say the same thing, that increases the confidence. And what they're both saying is this: we are not in extreme territory, for sure. We're not definitely in extreme fear, for sure. And of course, not any time on the extreme greed. So we are kind of in compression. Okay, so compression. So to come back to address a lot of the question that's still on our mind, right? Because I think some of the viewers are thinking, have we missed the bottom at $60,000 Bitcoin? Or some viewers still kind of with me thinking that, 4-year cycle, it's continuing. We'll need to get to at least the 200 weeks average. So there's still more bottom to come, right? So have we bottom? Now let's address what everyone wants to know, right? So from a power law perspective, right? If we look at the power law, we haven't touched historical floor levels. That's indicated by this blue line, okay? But from an MVRV Z-Score perspective, we haven't even entered the deep undervaluation zone. So could this, of course, some might argue to say that could this cycle be structurally shallower? Because of many, many reasons. And yes, totally, right? And all of this, it's all due to because ETF exists, right? Because ETF are constantly buying. So that's why I'm looking at the ETF data almost on a daily basis. And of course, we have institutions continuously buying, like the Sailor, the Meta Planet, we even have Saudi Arabia. We got Middle East constantly buying too, right? So that's constant absorbing the Bitcoin supply. And of course, treasury allocations are definitely happening. So here's something I've learned going through multiple cycles. The human psychology hasn't changed. Markets still overextend. Market still mean reverts, and liquidity still drives volatility. So the true bottom, historically, what I feel would be a true bottom will, me, you, anyone else, traders, investors will feel disgusted with Bitcoin, right? But we're not at that level yet, right? And of course, the very, very, very true bottom essentially coincide with media silence, right? There's like no more ever mention of Bitcoin, okay? And of course, the true silence will always kind of pushes the MVRV near to zero. And for now, we are not exactly near at all to zero yet. And of course, a true bottom usually, gets very, very close to the regression bands. For now, I don't see we are anytime near yet. Okay, so that's my thoughts. So we are not fully there yet, I think. That doesn't mean crash is guaranteed. I'm not saying that, there will be more bottom. I don't know, right? No one knows. So it means patience may still be required for the time being. That means maybe let's not FOMO in yet, because, maybe let's not FOMO in yet. But of course, some of you guys may come back to me and say, what about the bull case, the ISM? We haven't seen the top. We obviously hasn't seen the top here. Bitcoin should touch this red line. Bitcoin, the MVRV score should be at all-time high when we were at 126,000, right? So we got to be fair for this too. What if this specific cycle is slightly different? What if ETF demand absorb dips, drawdowns are shallower, bear market compress, volatility dampens? If that's true, we may not necessarily revisit extreme green zone. That could be true, right? So yeah, I think I think that could also be one of the, I would say, more bullish case, right? So yeah, maybe that could be it. And then we may not even see deep floor touches again, because ETFs constantly buying, MicroStrategy constantly buying. But if that's the case, if that's the bull case that you guys want, right, that's also the trade-off. If downside compresses, upside compresses too, right? So future returns may be more moderate, less explosive, like a little bit like right now, less explosive, more matured. And I'm afraid to tell you guys, that's how asset classes evolve. Once asset class evolve to a more mature stage, the expectation would be less return. Like look at your S&P 500 return. Okay, so this is why a lot of time, I always say, if you find an asset that's very good, that has a lot of good longevity, you want to go in fast and you want to go in hard so that you can buy a lot of it at a cheaper price, a bit like Bitcoin, so that eventually, you get to that retirement stage that you can just sell a little bit or just borrow against your collaterals. I don't know. I'm not a tax advisor, by the way. So where do I think we are right now? So based on both models, combine my base case, we are in the mid structure. Okay, not early bear capitulation. I think we still have time to get to capitulation. So this is a little bit like last cycle, right? So the last cycle top takes time to dip and then eventually capitulate. Let's look at the one from before. All-time high, dips, takes some time. A lot of time people have a lot of hopium, pump, hopium, dead cat bounce, hopium, dead cat bounce, and then eventually capitulate, right? So it takes time for us to capitulate, put it this way. Yeah, so I think both model, my base case, we are mid-structure, takes time to capitulate. So I reckon no late bull mania, of course. So I'm not expecting 2026 blow off top anymore. Not even when the business ISM cycle comes in. Okay. Do I sound too bearish now? Sorry, guys. I mean, I know you guys come in for hopium or copium, so I'm just giving you guys more FUD. I do apologize. So we are in a psychological war zone right now. So this phase, this is like the phase where bulls think bottom is in, right? Bear expect more pain, like me. Okay, I'm not a bear, to be honest. I just want to bring you guys the reality, okay? And of course, price continue to chops. I think it will definitely continue to chop for a longer period of time, a little bit like this. Chop, 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 chop. For this specific chop, it took approximately 10 months, okay? So hopefully, I mean, we came down quite steeply, and then maybe, you know, it take slightly shorter period to get to 200 weeks moving average. And then we chop, 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 chop. Maybe we don't need to wait until November to get back to that recovery like this, right? So the recovery to bottom was somewhere in November last cycle. Maybe this time round it could be earlier than November for that bottom and recovery, okay? So we'll see. And of course, sentiment oscillate, and this is where most people lose discipline. So I'm like, all my video nowadays are just like copium video for each and every one of my viewers now, right? Because this is where most people lose discipline. This is where you guys need to hit the like and hit subscribe and follow my content so that you guys don't leave, right? This is the time we need to stay, okay? Trust me, I've been there, okay? So this was my first cycle. I bought it somewhere here. And then when we dip, I left, right? I never DCA here, okay? And then by the time I learned about Bitcoin again, that was when Bitcoin hit around 64,000. And then I bought back at the top, right? And then, of course, it dipped. I got frightened. I left. And then Bitcoin got back to 69K. And then I got pumped. And then I DCA and bought the top again. What the hell, guys, right? And then when Bitcoin dipped, so at that point of time, 69,000, I told myself, I'm never leaving this cycle, because what I did differently at this cycle, I researched on Bitcoin, and it came to my attention that Bitcoin cycle usually lasts 4 years, okay? And unlike stocks and shares, equity markets, sometimes it can be 10 plus years, right? For a cycle. So I said to myself, I'm going to be here 4 years. I'm going to wait, check it out, DCA all the time. And I came back out stronger, guys. Right? So this is the time. Don't leave. Okay. Okay, where I am. So what I'm doing right now, okay, so guys, not financial advice, do your own research. But here's how I would approach this. I don't try to nail the exact bottom, because I cannot nail the bottom. I'm horrible at predicting stuff, as you can see from a lot of my video, right? So what I'll do, I'll run core DCA consistently. strategic allocation for large fear spikes, for large dips, and emotional discipline above everything, and not go crazy and panic sell. Okay, because you don't win Bitcoin by timing one candle. You win by surviving one full 4-year cycle, right? Just stay with me, guys. Stay with me. One full 4-year cycle is what you need. Okay, that's it. One cycle. After that, your psychology changes forever. Okay. So in conclusion, power law says let's go back there. Power law says we're not at historical floor or ceiling. We're kind of in the middle zone. And of course, MVRV says we're not overheated or deeply undervalued. And together they say this is accumulation structure. Do not, do not go all in, of course. So this is kind of like the best time to DCA. You might want to up your DCA more during this period, like the same period as last time. This time, when things are capitulating, when prices are going down, these are time you want to DCA hard, much harder than DCA here and DCA here, right? Of course, you still want to DCA and you want to DCA here, but you want to DCA the hardest. Like, assign more money into this. Not financial advice, do your own research, guys. But that's how I'm viewing the situation. So I think, guys, all we need to do now is stay a little bit patient. Bear market lasts 12 to 15 months. So this is not the time to leave, right? I hope you guys will not leave, right? Let me know in the comment section. It's always good to know that who's still with me. And I know a few of you guys always leave me comment, which I truly appreciate that. We need to stay disciplined. Discipline means DCA, bring down your average. If you bought, at the top, right? But of course, habits. This is where you want to. Hey, by the way, I always say you need to DCA and bring down your average. You guys do know your average, right? Whatever apps that you use to buy, you guys do know your average, right? You're not just guesstimating your average, right? So that's very important, okay? Because if you're investors, you always need to know what's your average and how much, you kind of work out how much do I need to buy to hit an even lower average, right? So these are all basic calculation that you guys need to be aware of. So make sure you have that discipline in place to track your buy, how much you bought, resulted in how much average you've been able to reduce, so that you can keep track a little bit of your price action. Let me know in the comment section if you guys are doing this, okay? And of course, you have to keep on with the habit, like watch my Compound Life video. I'm always here. I'm always here to support all of you guys. I'm going to promise I'm going to stay at least this cycle. Continue to make video for about 4 years. Does sound rather long, 4 years of video production every single day. So far, I'm not burnt out yet. I do enjoy my time being with all of you guys. Okay, I do enjoy my time. Not with all of you guys, with you individually. Because I'm guessing you guys watch my video individually by yourself, right? Not with a crowd. But anyway, not the time to FOMO, of course, right? Because I think social media, everyone's are calling like, bottom is in, now's your time, yada, yada, yada. Please don't FOMO in. DCA is the best. And of course, don't panic. Don't panic sell. If you're in your first cycle, the middle phase, like right now, feels confusing, right? Because you have a lot of signal. Bottom is in. oh, we're going to Valhalla soon, right? Or some of it would be like me, I'm telling you, bottom is not yet in because we have to go through that phase to get through the bottom, right? So the best thing to do is just DCA, stay calm, okay? And that's it. That's it for the two charts. Let's now move on to Bitcoin news, some Bitcoin news, okay? Okay, so things to look out for. Tuesday, yep. US retail sales for December came in at actual 0%, forecast 0.4%, previous 0.6%. So retail sales measure how much people are spending in store. A big part of the US economy. So it's weaker than expected means consumers are holding back, maybe due to high prices or job worries. I reckon it's more of the job worries. Okay. So this data is for December, but reported yesterday. It shows the economy might be slowing. Hell yeah, it's definitely slowing, guys. So I think at the time of release, around 8:30 a.m. your time in the US in the morning, Bitcoin definitely dipped a bit. So I think it's all short-term bearish, not good. I think, yeah, it's continuing to lead on to Bitcoin price dip even today. However, for longer term, I'm just hoping this kind of weak data can push the Fed to really cut rate in March. So far, in poly market, it's still very unlikely we're going to have a rate cut. Employment cost index for Q4 actual was 0.7%, forecast 0.8%, previous was 0.8%. So this tracks wage and benefit costs for workers. And of course, lower than expected means wage growth is slowing, which could ease inflation. I think that's a good thing, right? So obviously it released yesterday. We'll see how it can potentially affect Fed's decision in March. So other things to look forward to upcoming this week, at least for today, right? That's today. So these are small-ish data. I mean, it certainly does feed into Fed's decision, but it's not going to be game-changing that can influence the Bitcoin price instantaneously. So today, the employment report for January will come out. Forecast 55,000 jobs. Unemployment 4.4%. So this is a big job numbers everyone watches. So this data is pretty important. If weaker than forecast, it signals job market cooling. So again, this comes out around 8:30 a.m. in your time in the US. I reckon this one could cause some volatility for Bitcoin and other risk assets. So we'll see. And of course, we do have a lot of other headlines yesterday that's not really helping Bitcoin price. It's actually pretty bearish. Let me turn this up. This one.
Quick on this crypto legislation that seems to be hung up in the Senate. Secretary, do you expect that the Clarity Act will in fact come back for a markup? And why are we having a debate about bank margins? Where do you stand on this? Do you think crypto platforms should be able to pay rewards, pay customers for moving stablecoin or money out of traditional bank deposit accounts and keep them on crypto platforms? Where are you on that issue?
Again, Maria, I think what we're seeing in the crypto market over the past few months means more than ever that the U.S., we need market structure, we need clarity, and we need to get this across the line this spring. We got a few recalcitrant actors who said, well, it'd be better to have no legislation than the legislation we don't want. And I think both on the banks, the other crypto firms are united against them. So we need to get this across the line. The U.S. Under President Trump's leadership, the U.S. is becoming the crypto capital of the world with our best practices, best regulation, and for crypto to remain a viable digital asset and move forward, we need to get this Clarity Act done.
So you think it will be? It'll come back fairly soon then?
I'm optimistic, and there's bipartisan support here.
Quick on.
Yeah, so they obviously had some meeting yesterday at the White House. I don't think the outcome was positive. I think at least from Scott Bessent's perspective, he kind of accuses Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong for holding up crypto market structure bill. I somehow felt that's a little bit unfair for Brian Armstrong. I think to a certain extent, Brian Armstrong is still trying to help to get the most out of it so that people in America, you guys, will benefit from crypto holding stablecoin in the future, right? So that you can get some yields, some better yields from your stablecoin. But anyway, a lot of investors are waiting for this crypto market structure bill to pass. That will definitely give them more confidence. But in the meantime, no. I think the only hopes, one of the many, many, many hopes, we can't even get that. So depressing. So that's why it kind of explains, Bitcoin price kind of dipped today. But anyway, other news that are also, capturing headlines, also suppressing Bitcoin price a little bit. Something like Goldman Sachs cuts Bitcoin ETF holdings by 40% in Q4. It's not giving confidence in the market, right? Goldman Sachs cut its spot Bitcoin and Ethereum ETF holdings by 39.4% in the fourth quarter. It held 1 billion in spot Bitcoin ETF and about 1 billion in spot Ethereum ETF as of end of last year, according to its latest disclosure, right? Okay, so not good, So the investors, like, the retail investors, ETFs investors, they're going to look at this and say, shit, time to sell ETF. But anyway, other news. So there's still a lot of news that goes around that says Bitcoin slides below 67,000 as traders digest hawkish US macro outlook. Yeah, a lot to do with Kevin Walsh, to be honest. Okay, so yeah, one analyst cited Kevin Walsh nomination as Federal Reserve Chair as a hawkish signal pointing to tighter liquidity and fewer rate cuts ahead. I mean, these are just mainstream media trying to associate something that leads on to the Bitcoin price. Whereas you and I actually know that, Bitcoin price dip, it's because, we are going through a bear cycle now. Okay. And then at every signal, it's going to be used to indicate what causes the drop for Bitcoin. I mean, so yeah, don't always listen to mainstream media, guys. Okay, so to finish today, I just want to bring some hopium for everyone. I know we all need some copium and hopium. At least, guys, the big whales are still accumulating Bitcoin when everyone else are dumping Bitcoin. Okay, so look at the whales accumulation. Look at the whales dip buying. Okay, and they do kind of, do quite well at buying the dip, right? They buy the dip, this sharp spike of whales buying inflows, right? So this is like whales buying through a genuine, unique Bitcoin address, okay? Not one of them ETF, okay? So big spike, they buy, Bitcoin pump, right? Spike, they bought, Bitcoin pump. Somehow they kind of, they kind of timed this not perfectly, where they bought, Bitcoin dip for quite a long while, and then of course it pump again, right? And now it's a dip, major dip, and whales are going crazy. Okay, so whale buys are always good, gives some sort of confidence back into Bitcoin, and I tend to believe the whales more than I tend to believe in this or this. Okay, so I think that's it, guys. So I hope you like the content. Stay strong, stay safe, and I will see you in the next video, guys. Bye bye.